Welcome back to the Always Aggressive Podcast. Corey Palm, Tanner Lipsett, head coach Tony Ersland, bringing you, we're coming down to the stretch here. We've got one more duel left in the 2021-22 season. We'll get to that later. We'll get to coaches rankings. The second round of coaches rankings and RPI came out since we last spoke. But we're going to lead off today with the void that was last week. Guys, Coach, you had a bye week. Really, other teams were competing. Some other teams were competing. Some did some out-of-conference stuff. You elected to not schedule anything during this week. Was it productive?
Yeah, I thought we got a lot done last week. When you get in that Big Ten grind and you're competing Friday, Sunday, quite often, man, you don't get as much time to really train, right? Like you want. Like you compete, you get an off day, maybe you get a couple days, and then you're on the road and you're competing again. And so to have a whole week where we didn't have to worry about, just tapering to get ready for an event or make weight, we really got some good quality time in the room that I think is going to reflect well as we move into the Big Ten championships. Okay. So that was first and foremost, that was awesome. Bye weeks, right, are so rare. I can't remember in 24, 25 years of coaching really having a Super Bowl Sunday off, right? I can remember a lot of times being on the road, driving 12 passenger vans when I was at Central Michigan as an assistant, or being on a bus, or even hosting. So from the other aspect too, the training was great. And then just to be able to sit down and watch the Super Bowl with my family was really enjoyable. So all in all, a great week. And I'm excited for the end push here.
Yeah, that was wild, Tony. Like you said, I don't remember the last time I got to watch an entire Super Bowl. That was a novelty. It was crazy. So, but yeah, definitely a good chance to catch our breath a little bit and we watched quite a bit of wrestling. I know you and I sat down and watched the bout at the ballpark, the Iowa-Oklahoma State duel, which was not competitive. Nope. And then, just kind of like I told you, Tony, but I had an empty house this weekend.
Yeah.
I told Tony this, to quote Office Space, I did nothing. And it was everything that I thought it could be. It was amazing. There was nothing going on. So it was epic. So, but back at it, man, we're rolling. The one piece of news that we did get to work with at the end of the week was the second round of the NCAA Coaches Panel rankings and the first edition of the Ratings Percentage Index, or the RPI, as most people know it. Corey, did you know what that stood for?
I didn't. I was just thinking, wow, that's what that means. Okay, that's interesting. Yep. It's one of those accepted terms that everybody just sort of glosses over its actual meaning.
So before we get into one thing I will throw out there, the RPI is a very controversial subject. Tony can talk a little bit more on this in the coaching community. But the RPI, for those that don't know, it's just math. It has nothing to do with who anybody thinks is good or what team they wrestle for or anything like that. It's just math. And while the formula is not public knowledge, the things that feed into it are your record, the record of your opponents, and the record of your opponent's opponents. And all three pieces are weighted differently, and then it's kind of shoved into a blender and combined, and they just spit out the list. And so while you look at it and it doesn't make sense to some people, it's just straight math. Like there's no bias to it, and so it makes it a very weird tool to use when looking at rankings.
Yeah, it's I like it personally. I'll go on record saying it is a bit controversial, but I do like it. I think a data-driven approach fused with like coaches rankings and those things, it can be an important tool. It certainly shouldn't be the end all be all. I mean, I think volleyball leans on it really heavily. From I've heard.
Basketball used to.
Right. From what I've heard, they lean on it heavily. Wrestling, it's just, a part of the equation, right?
Yeah.
Coaches rank, the win percentage, the RPI, all are fused together to help make decisions. So I think that's good because it does take biases, out of it. Tanner and I have talked often about, you could have had a great last year, right? Like COVID was a very strange year, season shortened year. Guys finished high in the podium. And you come back this year and you're not quite the same guy for whatever reason, you know what I mean? But because you had finished on the podium, you get a lot of benefits of the doubt, even though who you've wrestled and what you're doing doesn't bear that out. So I do like just a straight, data-driven approach to help be part of the process. Although I will say, it was controversial last week because a lot of good kids hadn't reached that 15 match minimum. To be effective, you have to have a certain, body of work. And they've always said that's at 15 is kind of the lowest match count they want. And a lot of kids don't have 15 yet. You can point to several really tough guys that are still working on, maybe they got 10, 12 matches or whatever. So they're not even eligible for an RPI yet. And so that will change. I think that will sort itself out. So to be in an uproar right now let's just wait and see how it looks down the road as these guys catch their match counts and they do have an RPI.
Yeah. And the other thing is you have some guys that have a high enough win percentage that their coaches aren't concerned about their RPI.
Yep.
So they meet two of the three criteria. They're going to earn a spot for the conference. Whether they get an RPI or not is not,
Yep.
a concern to for certain individuals and certain teams. But it's interesting to me from the standpoint of like you said, the blinders are on and they're firmly on. It's just straight math and it goes into how many matches you wrestle and how many matches your opponents wrestle and so on and so forth. So it's in a day and age where we feel like some of the best guys are wrestling less and less.
Yeah.
It becomes a weird tool to use.
Match counts are down, and it's something I still agree with too. I mean, you look at our schedule this year. I only scheduled 14 dates. We are allowed 16, and I took 2 dates out. Part of that was because you've got guys like Devin Schroeder and Max Lyon that, they don't need the wear and tear on their body. They've been in there a long time. And so, I really feel like, hey, if you can save those guys a little bit here and there, that's a good thing for helping them through the season. Now, next year, right, we're going to have a younger team, some guys coming off redshirt. You might see us wrestling more. They need, more dates. And so that will change. But I do think strongly if you look at the guys who are winning, the match counts are a little lower than what they had been in the past.
And that being said, Tony, we have, we only have 2 guys that are in our projected starting lineup that aren't eligible for the RPI. Almost everybody on our roster is eligible. In fact, the 8 guys who are eligible for an RPI all had a top 33 ranking.
Yep.
In fact, I think our lowest was maybe 24. So, I mean, the fact that we have 8 starters with an RPI rank of 24 or higher, I think is interesting to say the least.
Yep.
But, and then
we've wrestled a good schedule. The Big Ten schedule is always good, but even our non-conference foes, right? That shows that we've wrestled a very competitive schedule all the way through.
For sure. And then you throw in Hayden Lowry as the, the guy that he is 1 match shy of being eligible for an RPI. And so it'll be interesting to see. And here's the other thing too, is when you're only at that 15, when you're in that bottom edge of the threshold for RPI, every match you wrestle makes a bigger influence. Like it can jump significantly one way or the other based on who you wrestle and who they've wrestled.
Yep.
And so it'll be really interesting to see what happens to his RPI when he, once he's in the formula and where he, jumps to.
Yeah. The last thing I would want to clear up for anybody listening, just so they know, is the match counts are different. You mentioned win percentage. A lot of coaches aren't worried about, the RPI, because if you have a win percentage of 70% and you have a coach's rank, 29 or higher, you qualify the weight, right? And that's all anybody cares about, is having their guys qualified. The win percentage match count is less than half that. It's 8. right? So it's an easier standard to meet as far as match count goes. However, you got to win 70% of those, because if you fall short of your 70% win percentage for whatever reason, now you don't have an RPI and you don't have a win percentage, you can't qualify the weight. You're going to have to catch one at Big Tens, or a wild card. So that's where it does get interesting. And so my whole thing, even though I scheduled 14 dates this year, was to ensure that we had a 15 match count minimum, even if you had an injury here or there, which certainly we did, like everybody else.
Sure. And the other thing you have to throw out is you see people's records, and you have to throw out all results against non-D1 competitors. I was looking at a guy yesterday whose record was something in the neighborhood of like 17-10. But if you took out all his D1 opponents, he's 9-10.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy that way when you got to peel back the layers of the onion to kind of see what's all going on in there and figure out whether somebody's going to make it or not.
And again, that factors into scheduling, right? I mean, that's why, traditionally we had done a big open early. Let's take Michigan State Open, but you run the risk when you go there, because it is open, that you might see a significant number of non-D1s, and they're not going to help your match count. So it kind of defeated your purpose. And that's why we did a lot of duels early, because we know they're D1 opponents, and regardless, those matches will count. So it all plays in, just for anybody listening, how we think about scheduling and how you're trying to get to the end of the year and put those guys in the best position to qualify.
Lest we not forget, like we said, we had 8 guys in the RPI, 7 guys ranked in the coaches ranking, which is another solid performance. I think 25 was the lowest rank for any of those seven guys. Devin Schroeder led the way, as high as number 8 in the country at 125. So obviously it puts us you got to feel pretty good about going into the end of the season with guys from our roster earning spots for the Big Ten tournament and having potential to qualify for nationals.
Yeah. And I do know one of the criteria, when you go, let's say you're at a weight class that's qualified 8 guys, just use an easy number, and you fall outside of the top 8, you have a poor tournament. And so you finish 9th, and they will wrestle it out, right? If there's 8 places, they'll wrestle you to 9th. Let's say you finish 9th. The fact that you qualified the weight will weigh heavily in the committee's mind for wild cards. So these are still big deals that should you fail to hit the number at Big Tens, you can earn a wild card because you were a guy who qualified the weight, which is part of this, in those factors, so that it's good. It's all good from our standpoint to have as many guys as possible qualify the weight and put themselves in solid positions to get there no matter what happens.
Corey, I love the Ersland is old school and still uses the term wild card as opposed to at-large selection as the NCAA encourages.
There you go.
Amusing that way to me. What do you say about, I guess, go ahead, Corey, you got one.
Before we get too far away from this topic, I've had this conversation with a few people in recent weeks. Like, sometimes we deal with macro level stuff, and Coach, if you don't want to get too deep into this, I understand. Does the sport have a problem in that, first of all, the stuff, it's kind of confusing for the outsider. That's okay. But it seems like there's a growing trend. I know you talk about keeping match numbers down. Like, we've seen guys in recent years, we've seen a couple this year, who will carry a top 5 ranking deep into the season when they haven't stepped on the mat yet. Like that is, there are guys who inherently come to Big Tens or come to Big 12s or come to wherever knowing that they're going to steal a bid, knowing they're going to steal an auto quality bid because they didn't wrestle enough to qualify it themselves. I don't want to call out any names. There have been plenty of examples.
Yeah.
Is that a problem?
It can be, you know what I mean? Like, when we come out and we see the bids at the weights and then you see who qualified the weight, it can be a real problem. And I would like to think that every coach in the Big Ten is wanting to qualify their guys, right? Whether it's through the win percentage and the rank, however you do it, I don't care.
Right.
It's incumbent upon us as coaches to get as many bids for the Big Ten as possible, right? Like that's the one thing we can all identify with is, we want the Big Ten guys in the bracket because we know it's the best conference in the country.
Right.
So if you're playing games, right? If a kid's legitimately hurt, we all get that. You can't do anything about that, right? That's part of the sport.
Sure.
What I get frustrated is maybe where guys are playing games and not wrestling guys, and then sure enough, they roll into conference and they hold a high rank because they've wrestled just enough, but they've not qualified the way. They're taking a spot from a kid who maybe worked his tail off, to get there. And so I don't know that it's a problem yet because I'm not going to say it's like prevalent.
Okay.
No, it's not like the transfer portal in men's basketball yet, where you got several hundred kids in. It's not that kind of it's not an epidemic.
Yep.
But man, if we end up going to nationals and a team doesn't get, 3, 4, 5 really good kids through because guys ate their spots, then yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be up in arms and have a problem with it.
I think my issue with it, Tony, is when a kid does not qualify the weight and then we seed him as if he did.
Yeah.
So like you give them, because we all know this, like seedings matter, right?
Yep.
And if you create a path to it for a guy to an automatic bid that they did not earn, that as a fan and as somebody who works in wrestling, that frustrates me.
Yeah.
Because you're screwing the kid that earned the spot.
Yep.
Versus somebody who didn't compete or didn't, and so
that's a very, and how you solve that, right, is I don't know because
right.
You don't know. I don't know how you solve it. And because those kids have clearly done something to earn a level of respect in the rankings. That's why they're ranked. Okay. But there's something to be said for those kids who show up every week and risk it, right? Like every time you take the mat, there's a risk. Something could happen. Maybe you're a head big and you get headlocked.
Yep.
And how much you get dinged for that? Like you were out competing and another guy was at home not doing anything. So I still have a lot of respect for the guys who show up, week in and week out and put it on the line and will wrestle, not the guys that they hide them here and they hide them there and then just try to show up and win. I have a lot of respect for kids, even in high school, the kids, who show up, man, like, sometimes you see a kid win a big tournament and you don't see him out there much anymore, right? Like, they're playing that game, trying to keep them in the rankings as high as they can. Man, you like kids who show up and risk it. They're going to be at Fargo. They're going to be at Super 32. They're going to be at Ironman, let's say, like they're going to be at these big events and put it on the line. And I like that. And it's the same way in college. I have a lot of respect for guys who will show up and go to battle.
And you actively, like you said, you scheduled to keep match counts down a little bit, but Max Lyon still got 20 matches this year.
Yeah.
Devin Schroeder's still sitting at 19 with one duel left.
Yep.
There's a way to do that.
Ways you can do it.
Right.
There's ways you can do it. Absolutely. So yeah, it's definitely a tough one. And even to Tanner's point earlier, I think he alluded to it, is what's interesting to me is we go through these kids and they're ranked very highly, but the schedule they've wrestled this year, however it may have happened, boy, they're weak. You're looking and these schedules are really weak, yet they're really high. They're highly ranked, but man, they don't have a good win. They don't have a quality win on their schedule. So, but again, I don't know how you get around that. That's why I do like on some hand that mathematical approach, because it just sorts through what your strength of schedule was.
Yeah. Well, and to take it another level, Tony, is, you get these kids who they start the season ranked really high, right? They go through the season, they wrestle a weak schedule. They don't wrestle anybody. They don't have any quality wins per se, but then somebody beats them, right? And they piggyback off that initial perception and they get a high rank. So you've got wrestler A who has no quality wins. You have wrestler B who beat A but doesn't have any other quality wins. And all of a sudden you're getting all these guys that are really highly ranked based on who somebody thought was supposed to be good.
Yeah. Yep.
6 or 7 months ago.
preseason perception and a week schedule.
Right.
Yeah.
And you see this in other sports too.
Oh yeah.
You look at men's basketball right now, like Michigan was preseason number 4, right? And now they're barely 500. And so are they a good team? I mean, they're better than their record is, obviously. But then you have teams that beat them early in the season and they shot up the rankings for beating Michigan, when in reality they beat a 500 team.
Yep.
So it's a very interesting predicament. It is not unique to wrestling. But no, like Tony said, I don't know how you fix it.
Yeah. When you figure that out, Corey, amongst these conversations,
okay,
let me know. Let me know.
Yeah, there's a huge raise probably in line for you if you can figure that one out.
or I'd be out of a job. One of the two.
Either's possible.
Either's possible. Okay. Let's. Should we move on to Northwestern?
I was going to throw one thing in there. You brought up Max Lyon, Corey, and it kind of jarred for me. Max Lyon's an interesting example to use because Max is 25 in the coaches rank. He's between probably, I want to say, like 19 and 28 in the various rankings, but he's 11 in the RPI.
Yeah, he's wrestled a very tough schedule.
Yeah.
10 and 10 on the year.
Yeah. Well, and another guy who's like that too is Garrett Nienhaus. Has wrestled everybody in his weight class, basically, if you look at from a ranking as well. You know, I mean,
Panola too. Panola's got like 13 or 14 ranked matches. Like half his matches have been against ranked people.
Yep.
So yeah, some definitely, and it's funny how you draw that, right? Like you set up duels and you go to these duels and some guys run into all kinds of ranked opponents and some guys don't. So it's definitely an imperfect system. Let's move on to this weekend. We final duel of the season. We're going to head up the road to the greater Chicagoland area and face Northwestern Saturday, 1:30 Eastern, live on the Big Ten Network. Should be, on paper, a great duel.
Should be, yeah.
Yeah, lot of good matchups. You know, obviously Northwestern has some very quality kids and a good lineup as well. So I'm expecting a tough duel. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be, you know, get ready for a knockdown, drag out duel with a lot of high quality individuals. And if you just look on paper, I mean, I think this duel is going to be won on not necessarily your ranked guys, right? I think it's going to be won on those other guys. You know, personally, everybody's going to have a big say in this. But Schroeder and DiAugustino, two really quality 25s that have great wins and are both high in the rankings. You know, 57, right? Deacon at number 1, former Big Ten final with Kendall. You've got, let's see, heavyweight's going to be big with Lucas Davison for them, is highly ranked. You know what I mean? Like they've got several good kids and match up with us where I think it's going to be an exciting duel. So, you know, stay tuned.
Yep. And you got a few spots there, Tony, where, you know, last year we wrestled Northwestern out of the gate to start the COVID year in 2021. Mm-hmm. And if you look back at that duel, we started 4 true freshmen.
Yeah.
In that duel, one of them up a weight.
Yep.
Yep.
Like we had, it was quite the, when we looked at the roster card, people kind of looked at us like, really? Really? And
COVID year.
Yeah. COVID year.
Yep.
We had people coming off injury. We had people coming out of quarantine. We had people, you know, we were all over the place. And so, you know, you'll see situations like 141 where Parker and Frankie Thal-Shahar have never had a chance to wrestle before because of that. 65, same deal, you know, Hayden Lowry and David Ferrante, you know, 84, Max Lyon and Jack Jessen. Like you got these matchups that, you know, we weren't able to have in last year's duel against Northwestern. And so it makes those matchups a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be, like I said, it's we say it all the time, so I'm repeating myself, but it's another Big Ten duel. There's going to be lots of good kids. There's going to be lots of matches, and the team who's going to get it done is the team who's going to win more of those tough situations, make it go their way, right? And that's at the end of the year. You want to be consistent in what you're doing. And that's been my whole message for the last 2 weeks, that we need consistency in our execution, consistency in our focus. Like, that's what I'm looking for this week, is just consistency in what we're doing as we head into Big Ten.
Northwestern coming off a really nice win over Michigan State this past weekend. Again, I feel like those two teams and us are a weird kind of like place in the Big Ten, because the three schools all match up really well.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw what happened in the Michigan State duel with us, came down to 1 point.
Criteria
Came down to 1 point. And so you look at those matchups and it's a similar situation with Northwestern, and they won some of those key matchups this past weekend against Michigan State. Overcame a pin at 65. They had to dig deep. They were upset at 133. Rayvon Foley, who's been scorching red hot for Michigan State, by the way.
Yeah, he had a big win over Cannon, who's an All-American, and he beat Ragusin, who's had a very good year for Michigan, this weekend. So as you said, he's on a bit of a roll right now.
He's on a tear. So it'll be interesting to see how we match up with Northwestern on Saturday. But good news is everybody gets to watch, because it's live on television. So we hope you'll tune in for that, and for our last regular season event before we head off the Big Tens. Our competition, though, is not the only competition this weekend. A huge set of days for a lot of young men and some young women in the states of Indiana and Illinois, as the state tournaments kick off. I think Illinois starts on Thursday, Tony, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And so Illinois is Thursday, Friday, Saturday in Champaign. Indiana is Friday and Saturday down in Indianapolis. We will have some coaches coming and going from both locations.
Busy week for y'all.
But a lot of people, a lot of kids out there getting to chase their dreams in high school.
Yeah, this is an exciting time of year for everybody. I mentioned earlier the grind of the Big Ten, right? And everybody has that grind of the season where you're head down and you're just working through it, right? Keeping your blinders on where you need to go, not losing focus. And now it's here, right? Like that road and all that sacrifice and suffering and everything you've put in, it's in front of you. And for me, that's just incredibly motivating, because I'll be over in Champaign watching future Boilermakers scrap it out. I'll be down in Indy, I'm hoping to hustle back down there Saturday night for the finals after our duel, watching future Boilermakers. So I'm going to be putting the miles in and around our dual meet with Northwestern, but it's motivating. These kids, it's here now finally. Just like in a couple weeks, Big Tens and Nationals will be here for our guys, and that's incredibly exciting and motivating. So I really enjoy this time of year because it's more than just getting out and seeing these guys that you like, right? How they compete. It's everything they've worked for, and that's a lot of fun.
There are a lot of guys out there we cannot talk about due to NCAA regulations, but one of the guys that we can talk about is our man Brody Bowman, who will be competing for a state title in Indiana at 170 pounds down in Indianapolis. He came off an injury this season. He got his knee worked on, and but man, he has looked good, and I'm really excited to see him compete down in Indy.
Yep. Yeah, let me echo your thoughts first, too, because I think that's important. There's a few other guys I'd love to talk about, but it's NCAA rules that prohibit me from doing it. So I apologize to anybody else listening on that deal. But because there is more than just Brody, but we love Brody. He's a guy who was one of our first, commits on that deal, and super talented kid, brings all the qualities that we want, right? As far as just a good kid, hard worker, very talented. He's got his life in order with school and his priorities and everything. So, again, excited to watch him fulfill another goal. And then I can't wait to get him into the room this summer. We're going to try to get him into Purdue as quick as we can. So, and just get going on that journey with him, shoulder to shoulder, right? Not just watching from afar, but we'll get on the next journey shoulder to shoulder together. And I can't wait for that.
Yeah, Brody has, he has marched through regional, sectionals, and semi-states. I don't think he's had anything that hasn't been bonus points. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tony. I'm not sure you know either, but
No.
he's just been pinning and majoring, and he's putting up some really nice results. And
Yeah, I think, was it 2 pins, a tech and a major at
semi-states? That sounds right to me.
Yep.
So really excited to get out there to see some people. Like we said, several people we can't mention due to rules, but
And
you know who you are.
Guys too.
You know who you are.
A lot of young guys.
Yeah, a lot of young guys. You know who you are. We love you.
That's
We
right.
text you. We send you messages. We send you graphics.
Can't do it here.
Go get your go get that state title this weekend. That's about it. That's all we got, guys. The bye week kind of, mellowed us out. I know we had a really long show last week, so.
Yep. Well, and I know we just talked about, we talked Illinois, Indiana for us, which kicks off right there. They're bordering. It's our home state and a state that borders, but that's going to be going on the next few weeks.
For
right?
sure.
Iowa's this weekend, which I'm a native Iowan, so I always keep track of that. You've got ones.
Nebraska's this weekend.
What's that?
Nebraska's this weekend.
Nebraska. Yeah, big one, right? Like, I probably should just list off a bunch of states.
What's Ohio?
Out.
Just start saying them all, right? No,
Yes.
Ohio and Pennsylvania aren't until later. They're not.
they're
Till
That's what I mean. But it's going to be over the next month where all of these things take place. And like we said, it's just a fun time of year for those guys and us, because we're on a lot of kids in all of these states. And so, yeah, it's motivating, it's fun, and a lot of dreams going to get reached here over the course of the next several weeks.
Well, and it's so fortunate with where we are geographically that, Illinois state champs and Indiana state champs are both an hour and a half or less from campus. Yep. So that makes it easy for you to get a lot of touch points in.
That's why I can do this around the Northwestern duel. This weekend we can be in a couple different places.
Aren't you glad we're not on a plane to Rutgers or something like that, Tony?
Yeah, that would make it very impossible to be out at these tournaments as we'd want to.
No doubt.
For sure.
All right. Looking ahead to next week, we'll recap Northwestern. We'll delve a little bit more into the next round of sort of rankings / seeding talk. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Seedings for Big Ten is going to be crazy.
Yes,
we can dive into that pretty deeply next week.
Well, and we anticipate there's a couple weight classes where, man, they might have to go all the way 1 through 14 placings.
Just throw them out of band. Just draw names out of a hat.
Unreal. Sometimes you'll see extra matches so that they can place, 9th and 10th. This year it's going to go deeper a couple places.
I'll go on the record. I think we're going to have a weight with 13 NCAA qualifiers.
Yep.
And just remember, it's only a number. Make your own luck. Go earn your spot.
For sure.
Absolutely. Had to get that coach speak in there.
Yeah.
Got to do it. The guys are listening.
Had to do it.
He was itching. Like he's like.
All right. Hey, we'll leave it there. Coach, good luck up in Evanston. Can't wait to watch it on the Big Ten Network. What time's that start again, T?
1:30 p.m. Eastern time.
1:30 Eastern. Tune in, see the Boilermakers and the Wildcats, and that'll put a wrap on the regular season. And then the fun stuff begins.
Where'd it go?
Poof. Into the air. All right. Good luck, and we'll catch you next week. Boiler up.